Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Think Tank Thursday. I'm Candy Kelly, and I'm thrilled to be with you this week. Thank you for coming. Before we begin, we want to thank our Think Tank sponsors. We love them. They allow us to bring you new episodes every week, and so we're so appreciative of their support. So let me give a shout out to Simnox, Roller, Delta Strike, Betson Distributing, BMI Merchandise, Expert Hosiery, and Embed. We appreciate their support and go check them out. Highly recommend all of them. Trainertainment likes to take a break from doing and spend some time thinking on Thursdays. And today we are spending that time with an awesome guest. Today we have Bob Cooney joining us, and Bob is a leading expert in the entertainment and attractions industry. Known for his innovative ideas and really deep understanding of the world of virtual reality and for location-based entertainment and beyond, he works with other industries as well. And so with over 2 decades of experience, Bob has advised numerous companies and helped them navigate the evolving technological landscape and the experiential experience. And so I brought him, so he's our guest. We're going to dive into the VR Summit that he hosts, all of the educational resources that he provides for this industry, and just his thoughts about where the future is going. So let's jump in and see how we can grow today. Bob, welcome to Think Tank Thursday. Why don't you take a few minutes? I can't imagine who wouldn't know who you are, but introduce yourself and share a bit about your background and kind of like where you are in the industry and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for having me. I've been in this industry since 1989. I started, and actually, if it goes back before that, I keep forgetting about this. I actually helped start a chain of pizza delivery restaurants in the Southeast United States in the mid to late 80s, and we took over a putt-putt mini golf in on Bush Boulevard in Tampa and turned it into a pizza pronto. And so my first foray into the family entertainment center business or the leisure business was in kind of the mid 80s, 86, 87, 80. Yeah, I was early. And then started one of the first successful laser tag companies in the 90s. And along the way, got into virtual reality in the early 90s and mid 90s. And then it's come back in the 2014, 2015 era. And so I spend almost all of my time now in virtual reality, not really in virtual reality. Well, it depends on your perspective, but I spend a lot of time playing around with these and helping companies try to figure out how to implement VR or bring VR products and solutions to market.
Awesome. I did know that you delivered, like, helped with pizza. I did not know that y'all had taken over that mini golf place, though.
Yeah, and for those in the industry, you probably know Perky's Pizza.
Mhm.
And so Perky's Pizza started out as Pizza Pronto, which was the company
Mm.
that I helped start. And then the owner of the company, Richard Perkins, his wife, his nickname for her was Perky. And they changed the name to Perky's Pizza. And so we were a pizza delivery chain. And then at some point after I left, they pivoted and they started doing kind of like this mobile solution that would go into gas stations and FECs and stuff like that. But yeah, so actually Perky's Pizza, I was there and opened the very first store in Clearwater, Florida. Or not Clearwater? No, Tampa, Florida, Carrollwood Village.
Very cool.
I don't
Yeah,
know if
Perky's
anybody's
Pizza,
heard of.
a lot of times, like you'll find them at any other trade shows. A lot of time, they're definitely focused in this industry with providing
Yeah.
pizza solutions. Um, Out of curiosity, just because you've said a few different things, what terminology do you use for our industry? Do you use location-based entertainment? Do you use FE? What do you use? Out of just a curiosity
Yeah.
question.
Look, I didn't like LBE. I'm frustrated that it stuck. And now IAP is even using it, right? And so I think location-based entertainment is certainly stuck as an industry term. And I think that that's the one we probably use. I think family entertainment centers are a subset of location-based entertainment. And I think location-based entertainment is kind of a good umbrella term. And then within that, there's theaters and theme parks and movie theaters and arcades and FECs and all the other stuff. But I think LBE is kind of sticking.
Okay. Um, so I know we're about a month past the VR Summit. And for those who may not know what the VR Summit is, can you explain what it is? Is it coming back next year? And then what were some of the biggest things that like were your ahas from this year's summit?
Yeah, so the VR Summit is something that I started with the help of and the endorsement and support of Pete Gustafson from the AAMA. And it is a VR education event that is co-located with Amusement Expo in Las Vegas every year. This was the seventh edition in 8 years. We took a year off during the pandemic, as most events did. Um, and look, and the reason I did it was because I was going to all these VR shows, and there were a bunch of companies that had interesting solutions for location-based entertainment, but there were no operators there, and all the operators were going to IAPA, and IAPA wasn't doing education about virtual reality. In fact, in 2016, I think there were 100 companies at IAPA showing some sort of virtual reality solution, and they had zero education on the program. And I was like, all right, we need to start educating the amusement operators about what VR is and how it works. And so we started the VR Summit, and it's grown dramatically this year. We went to 2 full days this year, and yeah, we'll be back next year. Next year is the last year of the contract with Amusement Expo, and we'll see where we go from there. But it's we and I try to do a balance of what's pragmatic that you can do today for
Mhm.
operators and what's coming in the future. And that's really the balance that I do, like case studies and what the technology is and what are the solutions and how do you use them and how do you price them and how do you market them? And then what's the next 3 to 5 years look like to start preparing them for this, really rapid escalation of innovation that's happening with all of this new technology coming with virtual reality, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, all of this stuff is converging into this metaverse term that you hear. And it's actually going to have a massive impact on our industry. And I just want to make sure everybody sees what's coming.
I know not a lot from the VR Summit probably surprises you because you put together the program, but coming out of it, what were some of the like ahas that you either felt like
Yeah.
really resonated with the crowd or like you yourself?
Yeah. Look, one of the things we do is we live poll the audience during the summit and during all the sessions. And some of the insights, I haven't gotten through all of them yet, but some of the insights were really interesting. And one of them that surprised me is how interested operators were in haptics for virtual reality. So, haptic guns, haptic
Mhm.
vests, things that further immerse you beyond just the visual that you get from the headset. And, 80% of the operators said that they want haptics, which really surprised me because there's an operational overhead and an additional cost that comes with that. And so I thought that was really interesting. And then the other one was we had a session on storytelling in VR or non-gaming VR. So, a lot of the VR in our industry is zombie shooters is kind of the
Mhm.
thing that
Yeah.
people think about. Um, but there's a real hunger by operators for VR applications and experiences that are not gaming, whether it be storytelling VR or educational experiences. People build these VR installations and they're dark Tuesday afternoon, right? Like a total FEC is. And because this is all digital now, and I just load different software on my headset, and by the way, I'm holding up a Quest 3, which I don't
Okay.
recommend using, but really experimental using, I believe Pico and HTC Vive Focus are the headsets we use in our industry. But it's just a headset, and you can load whatever software you want, and in an open space, you deliver whatever kind of experience you want. And so the idea of running educational experiences, cultural experiences, field trips, all of that in virtual reality, like that stuff's here today and it's available. And operators were really interested in all alternative types of experiences that they could run in virtual reality in their entertainment centers. And it kind of caught me by surprise how much interest there is. And one of the reasons I'm here in Barcelona right now is I'm looking at a company who's like the leading company in doing free roam virtual reality cultural experiences for museums, and they've got a Tutankhamun exhibit. They're developing. They've got one for Dali for art museums, and where you go in and you're immersed in these environments, and it's really fascinating. So I'm like looking for what other types of experiences we might be able to bring back into the entertainment industry to broaden their audience and kind of fill some of the dead times in FECs.
You were speaking, and I just had like a glimmer of like partnership with some educational people and creating like field trips based around the different things. Like if you think about a lot of the location-based entertainment, there's a lot of open space during the week that's not used. I think the
Yeah,
only one that's used are like league houses for bowling. They're the ones who are full kind of during the week. But
yeah.
roller skating rinks don't open a lot of times until late. They have this open thing, and like the partnership between education and creating something that in the virtual headset, so it applies to the curriculum that is out there for students.
And Urban Air, I interviewed Michael Browning during the pandemic at the Show Up virtual conference trade show that we did, and they had just really started rolling out after school programs, right, for their trampoline
Mhm.
parks or adventure parks, whatever they want to call them. And I think that a lot of FECs that are successful have sales departments now, and there's no reason that somebody like Train Entertainment couldn't train them how to sell educational programs, virtual field trips, etc., to schools and have them come in. And one of the things that's happening here in Spain is the government has given a $6 million grant to create a mobile VR, free roam VR setup that's going to go around to high schools in the country and give virtual education programs for kids in high school. And the government is sponsoring that. And so we're starting to see the first signs that that's going to happen. And we're going to see more and more of that content developed over the next, year, two, three.
That's really fascinating. Switching gears a little bit. So before we leave that, the VR Summit will be next year, co-located again with Amusement Expo, which will be again in
Yep.
March-ish. So
And you can get information at the vrarcadesummit.com.
okay.
We still have last year's site up. We haven't actually updated it with some of the insights and stuff, but we'll be continuing to push new information to that website, and you can sign up for updates on vrarcadesummit.com.
Also, before we leave from there, one of my things that I loved that you did at the VR Summit is, I am involved in training the up and coming leaders of our industry a lot of times with clients. And so you interviewed someone who was young, and I loved a lot of the like just side comments that you made that like maybe it's time we adjust to them instead of expecting them to adjust to us, because I get very frustrated with listening to some managers and owner operators complain about the up and coming generations, about them being like lazy or not wanting to work. When actually, when I look at them, because I'm raising girls and they're probably the busiest, hardest working, like in their extracurriculars, in the things that they do. They volunteer, they're like have multiple things going on at all time, but they don't want to work for you for 40 hours. Like that's the thing. Like,
And they don't want to do meaningless work. Like they are volunteering. They're actually passionate. They care about it. They care about their communities and the environment and stuff like that. And so they want to do meaningful work. And if you can't give them meaningful work, then you're gonna get you're not going to get a great output out of it. And look, every generation has its gaps, right? That's why the term generation gap exists. And I think that I laugh too when I hear these kids these days. If people could just hear that in the mirror, hear something in the mirror. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I love that you interviewed him, who was like showing that he thought about it in a different way. And you can provide meaningful work even in working the front counter of a location-based entertainment place. Switching gears from the VR Summit a little bit, you founded something called the VR Collective, and it has undergone several transformations over a couple of years. But could you provide me an overview of like what it is now and how it facilitates like what I see that it does, and you can correct me, is that it facilitates really connections between VR products and the location-based entertainment facilities that may be looking for VR products. That's my assumption, and you can
Yeah.
correct that.
Yeah, look, I think the impetus was companies would come to me and say, "Hey, how do I get distribution for my VR product?" And there really is no distribution channel for location-based VR solutions. And so, companies would try to work with traditional amusement distributors, or they would partner with a company like CreativeWorks, or I think Amusement Products is doing some stuff. But there's not a lot of companies that really understand the complexity of virtual reality that can help solution providers and developers, manufacturers connect that into the market. And so the VR Collective is designed to create an efficient distribution channel for location-based VR products to operators. And one of the and again, it's a network effect, right? So we want to have as many products as we can as possible, because operators don't know what's possible. They don't know what's available. They might see one thing and not realize there's actually a whole bunch of other things that might be like that or even better that for their location. And so educating operators to what's possible, what's available, and like I'm in Spain today. I was in France last week. I'm going to be in Thailand next week. And so I'm traveling the world constantly and experiencing these things. I did 10 different VR experiences in the last 2 days here in Spain. Right. And so what I'm trying to do is bring that knowledge and that experience to bear for operators so they can make better decisions about what products to put in their venues. Because, I hear this all the time. Last year at the VR Arcade Summit, we had a distributor on stage talking about VR, and they kept saying, you just need to get a VR. And I'm like, yeah, it's not just a checkbox on a list. It's an entire industry with different types of experiences that work for different types of customers and different types of environments with different kinds of mindsets and different kind of price points with different investment. It's like, it's complicated. And so I want to make sure that operators know what they're doing so they're not wasting money buying the wrong stuff for the wrong situation. And so it's still an experiment. I call it a grand experiment. It's an emergent business. We're constantly evolving it. We've got probably 80 or 90 different products up there now. We're going to be adding a whole new category of free roam games. We're going to have a whole games category that we're building out right now that's going to have every free roam VR game that we can find listed and which launcher it's available with and which headset it works for. Because free roam is really kind of the future. We're going to add a whole category for cultural and museum and art experiences, tourism experiences. And so we're just going to keep building it out as an ultimate resource for what's possible for location-based VR and immersive entertainment.
Very cool. And give the website for that one if you.
It's the vrcollective.com. And if you start Googling for VR arcade, different VR arcade products, you'll see it come up. It's it's in the top 3 or 4 on Google and pretty much any product that you're looking for right now. And so we're getting a lot of inquiries from all over the world, which is the other amazing thing. Like we're getting these international inquiries from every country you can imagine. It's so cool.
And one of the things that I think is really cool about what you're doing with it is that I know you and your integrity. You refuse to put a product up there that you haven't experienced yourself.
So
A lot of times.
yeah, first of all, I really appreciate that, Candy. And it's a delicate balance, right? I don't want to be a gatekeeper either. And
Yeah.
so just because I don't think something's the best thing doesn't necessarily mean the company shouldn't have the ability to promote it and sell it. And so it's a really fine line. And I've been accused of gatekeeping before, and I'm really sensitive to that. And so what I try to do is I try to say, here are the products that I've reviewed, and here's the ones that I like. And the other products are like, I don't have an opinion, I haven't reviewed those. And people can, take that for whatever they think. Now, if they call me and ask me, I'm going to give them an honest opinion.
Hey, I also noticed you have brought back the Being Virtual show. And so more consistent episodes of that. And so tell us about the Being Virtual show and like what type of insights audience could gain from watching it.
Yeah. So it started out 2018, 2019. I was doing these weekly deep dive webinars with entrepreneurs that were doing emergent things in location-based VR arcade business. And then during the pandemic, we kind of pivoted that to a live 30-minute news show about virtual reality, which was a lot of work. And we did that for about 2.5 months. Didn't realize how much work doing a really live scripted show was going to be. And then we did Show Up, which was the virtual trade show, which was a 3-day conference, multiple tracks. And that was a lot of work. And then I decided to get back to the weekly live stream because it just takes a lot less preparation, frankly. And as we're traveling around, and I just like highlighting companies and people that are doing interesting things. And so this year we're doing it more about the broader VR market, as Apple now has come into the market with the Apple Vision Pro, and Meta's on their 3rd version with Quest, and there's going to be a Google Android headset probably coming out, Samsung headset coming out later this year. And so I think that there's just a lot of interest in virtual reality in general, and it's going to impact our industry. It's not just zombie shooters anymore. There are companies using VR to train employees to do things like There's virtual reality meat cutter training where you learn how to
Oh,
do cut sides of beef in VR so you don't cut your hands off and you're not wasting valuable resources. There's firefighter training, there's police training, there's soft skill trainings on how to de-escalate difficult customer situations, right? And so VR is being used in all of these really interesting, fascinating ways to make training, education, entertainment more effective. And so if you're interested in that, I think the Being Virtual show is going to highlight a lot of aspects of VR that aren't just location-based entertainment. It's how else is this stuff being used in all of these other markets.
cool. I'm definitely intrigued by the training stuff. I've started to do more just research into what that looks like and how it can be implemented and like cost and all of those things. Um, my next two questions are very subjective. I'll go ahead and say that, and kind of probably heavy. So, you have been considered like the leading VR expert in our industry for quite some time. So, really, when you think about it, like, how do you envision virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented reality shaping the future of location-based entertainment?
So in at the very first VR summit, I said that VR is a display technology, right? This is just a monitor, right? Right now I'm looking at a laptop screen. This is another version of that. And and so computing, when we think about using computers, and a lot of arcade games are computers, right? They're big fancy
Yeah.
computers. Um, we've trained ourselves to use the computer the way the computer wants to be used. Typing keyboards isn't natural. We had to learn how to do that. Using a mouse and pointing and clicking and trying to make sure our hand is where it's supposed to be so the mouse thing gets there so we can click is not natural, right? They call it human computer interface, right? But it's not really natural. It's more the computer drive, and we have to learn how to use the computer. Virtual reality changes the game to where we actually interact with computer technology in a way that feels more human. So we are in the space, our hands are being tracked. We use our voices and our eyes to select things, right? So it's much more human. And so I think we're entering into this phase of computer technology that is more natural. It's natural computing. And once people get this experience, and I'll tell you, so about a month ago, I was in Australia. I was flying to Newcastle, and I spilled a coffee, an entire cappuccino on my keyboard at the lounge waiting to get on the plane. And so I was without my computer for 2 weeks, and I was on the road, and I had the VR summit coming up, and can you imagine
Mm.
3 weeks before a conference in a row?
Craziness.
And so all I had was this. And I bought a $99 Bluetooth keyboard and I worked in that headset for 2 weeks while they were repairing my computer. And it was actually pretty functional. I was able to have multiple monitors, virtual monitors up in front of me, and the keyboard was linked, and I had a mouse, and I was actually able to create this virtual office in the headset. And was it amazing? No. Was it, but could I see the future from here? Yeah, I can. And within a couple of years, you're going to have lighter weight headsets that allow you at work to have multiple monitor setups that allow you to be way more productive while you're working. And that's how people are going to first experience. Yeah, you're going to play games and zombie shooters and
Mhm.
stuff like that, but that's really a fairly narrow demographic. The way people are going to get access to virtual reality is through using them as productivity tools. And that might be hard to believe. So just trust me on this, right? I've seen it, I've done it. Everybody that I demonstrated to, they go, "Oh, wow, I had no idea." That's the reaction I get almost 100% of the time. And so just like the iPhone, the reason the iPhone became so popular was it was first the BlackBerry, right? The
Mhm.
BlackBerry gave us the belief that we could have email away from our computers. And then once we got email, we're like, well, why can't I get the rest of the computing stuff? And then the iPhone came out and we got a really solid browser experience and an email experience. And we had the internet in our pocket, right? And that was generally work experience. That was people who used it for work tools that went, oh, portable computing. That's amazing. And now we can't live without it. The same thing's happening with VR. People are using it in a work context. There's B2B applications. They're using them in schools. They're using them in industry. They're using them in training. You're going to use it broader in productivity. And then all of a sudden, when you take and the other key is, I don't know if I've been watching all of the Apple Vision Pro reviews, right? And one of the things I've heard consistently from the reviewers, and these are even the ones that didn't like it, they take it off and they say the world feels flat. And so, so because all of a sudden they're in this environment where everything, all the things that they're doing, the digital things they're doing, have depth and shadow and light, and they're in this
Mm,
natural environment because you're passing through the real environment through cameras. So you see the room that you're in, and then you see these digital objects in the room, and those digital objects look and then you take it off, and all that digital stuff's gone, and then you're just left with the real world. You're just left with reality. And so what's happening is they talk about augmented reality, right? Which makes reality better than regular reality. And people are going to
yeah.
become addicted to it. So as consumers become more, so do you remember when we went from standard definition to HDTV?
Yeah.
How hard it was to go back to standard definition once you saw HDTV? You're
After you got past the weirdness of HGTV, like feeling like it was coming at you. Yes.
Yeah, right. And then you had, well, I'm not talking about 3D. I mean just HD,
Yeah.
just the
Yeah.
clarity of it, right? I'm kind of old enough to remember going from black and white to color, right? And so the same thing's going to happen with VR. Consumers are going to get exposed to it. They're going to use it more and more. They're going to use it in a business context. They're going to use it in education context. And then 2D monitors are going to feel really, really old and archaic. And there's going to be an expectation that digital entertainment is delivered in an immersive 3D environment. And this is the monitor that we're going to use for that. And so I think you're going to see over the next decade or more. It's hard to say how long. I thought it would have happened by now. The
I
technology
know you've
evolved
been
way
waiting
too
for a
fast.
while, so
But I think that I still see, but we're still making incremental progress with headwinds, cable suck, backhand suck. We got rid of those. Hand tracking still isn't there yet, but it's getting better. And so we're making incremental progress towards it. But that's where it's going to go. And I think that eventually all of our digital entertainment will be delivered through some kind of a wearable technology. And arcade games will be quaint and fun and historical.
very interesting to think about that world. Um, but you see it, and you were talking about cultural. I went to the Van Gogh experience here, and at the end, they're like, "Would you like this VR experience of it as well?" So it is creeping up, and all it takes is for people to be exposed to it, and that's what we're waiting on. I think is that exposure level because people are still unsure, but they just need a little bit of exposure, and then a little bit more.
And look, and the business models haven't been clear either for
Yeah.
LVE, right? So putting six people in a room and having two attendants where you charge $20, like the economics, the single unit economics haven't been there. But I'm starting to see with the tech stack getting better and cheaper, I'm starting to see the single unit economics emerge that will support really rapid growth of this. We went to a place in downtown Barcelona 2 nights ago, and there's a Tomorrowland is a big music festival in Belgium every year. It's
Hmm.
massive. It's kind of like
Yeah.
one of the Coachella level ones. And they had a virtual reality exhibit there that was kind of promoting the story around Tomorrowland. And it was a Tuesday afternoon at 5 o'clock, and there were 24 people in one free 2,000 square foot free roam experience that had paid, I don't know, 27 euros each. And the thing was staffed with three people. And so the economics of that
Mhm.
really start to work. And I think I'll be talking about more of that this year as the year goes on and try to bring some of those to light for people.
Um, moving a little, I mean, not from virtual reality because I think that it's part of it, but you you are also the only person I know who really kind of understands the metaverse, honestly, in my world. Um, how do you see the metaverse and the existence of it impacting just entertainment in general? We can get away from location-based entertainment, just entertainment kind of in general. And is it something that you feel like this industry should really pay attention to?
Look, it went through its big hype cycle and it was overhyped and,
Hmm.
because it's really far in the future. But I think, the best thing that we can look at to compare it to is the internet, right? The metaverse is the 3D internet.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
way to think about it, right? And so as more and more of these experiences become 3D and those experiences get connected to each other, that's the metaverse, right? And so, and we're starting to see like these virtual personas that Apple and Meta are showing. Apple just upgraded their FaceTime persona where it actually kind of looks like you, and there's eye tracking and facial tracking, and it's once you get through the uncanny valley stuff, it feels like you're actually looking at somebody and they're in your room with you and you're talking to them. So like that's there today. And so within a few years, we'll be doing this call in a headset in a virtual environment, and we'll feel like right now I've got a laptop, a keyboard, a screen, you got a blue background.
Yeah.
Like I know you're not here with me, but the stuff that's happening is going to pull us into a room together where we're going to feel close and we're going to feel present. It's called virtual telepresence. We're going to feel present with each other. And I think that that's going to create greater connections, and we're going to want to communicate that way. And again, that's another thing that's going to drive more people to use VR. It's these little independent use cases. So it's not about going in a gaming world and floating around and playing games. I think those are games, and we have
Hmm.
those. They're called blocks and stuff like that. It's using these virtual experiences in all these different ways that we use technology now. It's just going to be better in VR. And when they get connected, that's the metaverse, is when I can go from this call with you and we can call Kylie, and Kylie can just all of a sudden jump in and she's in the room with us and we're talking to each other, and the three of us can go and play walkabout mini golf. I highly recommend everybody that has a Quest headset, if you're watching this and you haven't done it, go download a game called Walkabout Mini Golf. And
Well,
what it is it's a virtual reality miniature golf game with all of these fantastic courses, and you can play with your friends in your living room. And people use it for business meetings. Like they'll play a round of mini golf and they'll have a business conversation with their kids, right?
yeah.
On golf courses. It happens all the time. And so it's a really early use case of, how the metaverse is going to play out, because we're all connected, we're all disconnected, we're all over the place. There's digital nomads and people are traveling more and people are working from home. And those trends aren't, I mean, people are trying to pull back on the work from home thing, but you can't put the genie back in the bottle. And so I think that as we become more disconnected physically as a society, what the metaverse, the promise of it, has the opportunity to bring us back together in a way that feels more personal than Zoom, because the Zoom fatigue is a real thing.
Hmm.
Again, it's not natural. And the promise of virtual reality, and this is where it gets a bad rap, is everybody says, "Oh, it's bad, it's evil, it's isolating, it's solo," and that's because the early implementations of it was, but they don't understand what's possible and what's coming, which is it's actually going to be the most social technology we've ever had. And now there's all kinds of risks that come with it around privacy and manipulation. And like I could spend the last Being Virtual show with Louis Rosenberg went into those. You can go watch it on
Okay.
beingvirtual.tv. But all of that aside, the promise of the metaverse is actually enabling technology to bring us closer together. And I truly believe that that's what's going to happen.
Which is interesting because my last question for you is, do you feel like all of these changes will detract from humanity or enhance humanity? And it sounds like some of you, there's a part of you who thinks it can enhance it because we are disconnected now. We aren't true. We're not authentic a lot of times right now. Like we're in this era of inauthenticity because of, I don't know, performance, whatever it is. So I was just wondering what your thoughts were that.
Yeah, look, I think that there are real challenges for humanity. One is that we're not conscious enough, and we don't understand why. Like, if you ask somebody why they're addicted to this, they'll blame it on the algorithm, right? It's your own
Mhm.
psychology because there's something in you that needs to be distracted, and you're feeling uncomfortable being with yourself, and so it's easy to get distracted by something. Is the algorithm powerful? Yeah, TikTok's a weapon, absolutely. But if you were conscious and you could catch yourself doing it and ask yourself, why am I distracted right now? You might be able to pull yourself out of that. And so we're not strong enough as humans. We're not human enough, or maybe we're too human, to catch ourselves and understand what drives our own behavior. We all do things and we question, like, what the hell? Why did I do that thing? Right. And
Mhm.
so I think that there's, as technology continues to evolve, and and media continues to drive technology, which is a scary combination. I do think that as a species, we are really challenged in how do we cope with this technological change, and it creates great stress. Like the whole AI thing, it scares people. People are
Mhm.
afraid of AI. And is it going to take jobs? Is it going to lead to the Terminator movie? Like, who knows what's going to happen? And I don't think we're just so socially prepared for this technological disruption. And our government, our legal system isn't. Our legal system has evolved like a flat line, and technology is evolving exponentially, right? So now there's
Mhm.
this great John Stewart, I think last week, did this thing where he's interviewing congressmen about AI, and they were like, and he was asking them really basic questions about it, and they're just like, yeah, we know it's a thing. We're gonna have to figure that out. Like they have no idea, and so look, I don't like anything. Everything's got its positive and its negative side, and I think the thing we can do is just become more conscious about why are we using these tools, how do they impact us individually and our kids and our families, and just be awake and aware to why we use them and how to use them for positive things and how to avoid the negative implications of them.
Thank you for that. I have a signature question for Think Tank. And so it's crazy to ask you because I think that you are growing all the time, but what would you say you're currently doing to grow yourself?
Um, yeah, it's a good question.
I know we've spent this whole interview talking about how you're growing others in this in this knowledge. Like, what are you doing to grow yourself?
So I'm working. I've actually started during the cruise. I started working on a new book, and so there are some books that have been fundamental to my growth. The first one was The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, which I think I mentioned on a previous webinar with you, um, and the Tao Te Ching, which was written by Lao Tzu 5,000 years ago. Some of the work of Jung. I can't remember his first name.
Carl?
Carl, Carl, Carl Jung. And I discovered a new book last year called The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. It was written in 1910.
Wow.
And it's the book apparently that Napoleon Hill wrote that led him to write Think and Grow Rich. And then all of the manifestation books like The Secret and stuff like that were built on that, Bob Proctor's practice. But this is the source material, the modern source material, I think, of the modern manifestation thing. And I've been listening to all of these and reading all these books, and they all have real common language. So they all actually are talking about the same thing, but in different language over different eras. And so what I'm doing is I'm analyzing those books and pulling them apart and looking for the commonality, the common themes that all of these great spiritual leaders have have written about and talked about over centuries, and trying to look for what are the common themes and how do we apply them into today's life. And so that's the thing that I'm working on now, that I'm really excited about, and I have no idea what it's going to turn into, but it's all the same stuff. It's all the same stuff. From Jesus and Muhammad and the ancient Chinese Zen stuff from Japan and Hinduism and Buddhism. It's really all the same stuff, and it's about how do you become more conscious? How do you become more aware of what's going on? And I think right now in our society, because of these technological evolutions, it's as important as it's ever been, if not more so. And is there a way to bring that into a more modern language that people it'll resonate with people?
Well, I can't wait to see where that goes.
Me too.
You know, my degree is in psychology, so that's like always a hobby and passion of like keeping up with some of those things. And so, you'll have to keep me informed there. So, thank you for your time when you're all the way across the world and traveling all the time. You've covered so much stuff about what you're involved in. So, for those who are interested in connecting with you or in learning about any of the topics or the, resources that you provide that we discussed today, where would you send them?
Yeah, I think two places you can go to bobcooney.com. That's my website, and from there you'll be able to see the VR Collective and other things that the VR Arcade Summit, other things that I'm doing and writing. I'm also very active on LinkedIn as a social
Mhm.
network. It's probably my biggest network, and so you can reach out to me and connect on LinkedIn. I generally accept all connection requests there, and yeah, that's probably the two places that you can easily reach me.
Okay. Well, thank you again for your time today.
My pleasure. Thanks, Candy.
I love my conversations with Bob, and I hope that you enjoyed it today too. I want to thank him again for his time as he is a drifter all over the world, helping all of these VR companies and going out there and really experiencing and learning so he can bring his insights to us. Again, let me thank our 2024 sponsors. We're so thankful for their support. And always remember, guys, if you have a think tank idea, you want to be a guest on Think Tank and come have a conversation with me, you want to sponsor Think Tank, all of those are options for you. So if you want to, just contact me, candy@trainertainment.net. And then also be sure to see where you can connect with Trainertainment in real life. All of our upcoming events and appearances can be found at trainertainment.net under our events menu. And again, thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Think Tank Thursday. Remember, the journey to success is all about growth, and here at Trainertainment, we are committed to helping you and your company thrive. So visit trainertainment.net to learn more about how we can support your growth journey. And until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving for extraordinary. Thanks, guys.